Aubrey, we're talking about some amazing vocabulary today. Vocabulary that students can use on speaking and writing task 1 and writing task 2 all over the place.
Absolutely. The vocabulary you will learn in this episode will be the most useful on both speaking and writing for sure. Of anything else you can learn, it's guaranteed to come up on every IELTS exam.
100%. So, we are talking about vocabulary for sizes and amounts. And it's not just on writing task 1, because academic task 1, you need this vocabulary. But this vocab is for speaking too, like talking about how big something is or a lot of things, right?
Yes, and writing task 2, you often are needing to talk about how much needs to change. How big is the change? What is the
Totally.
amount of change that needs to happen?
Totally. So this was inspired, I believe, by a student in our course who posted some synonyms for big, small, blah, blah, blah. And some of the synonyms were not useful. So today, guys, we are going to tell you the best synonyms for these sizes and also vocabulary that you need to be careful of because even if you see it on a list online, it doesn't actually mean the same as big and small.
Exactly. If you are pulling synonyms from a thesaurus or even vocab lists online, you very easily could use a word that doesn't quite mean the same as these more simple words like big, small, good, bad. Some of them are a more specific context. So you need to be aware of that or it can pull down your vocabulary score.
Exactly, exactly. So let's get into this list, Aubrey. The first is big, right? Big is the easiest word, guys. Never say this word in
Right.
speaking or writing. What can we use instead of big?
Yes, we're going to share three band nine alternatives: colossal,
I love that word.
enormous, and gigantic. So if you see yourself write big or you're about to say it on the speaking exam, all three of these are much higher scoring synonyms.
But make sure that you are using them correctly, right? It's not just big, right? It's huge. It is very very big. So it wouldn't make sense to say like in my living room, I think the most comfortable piece of furniture is a colossal couch that I have. It fits like 3 people.
Right? Unless it really is a gigantic couch, that wouldn't make sense. That's a good point. These are more replacing if you want to say extremely big or
Right.
very big. Instead, use one of these alternatives.
And as we go through this list today, guys, we will put this in our blog. So go to allearsenglish.com/IELTS. And this is episode 1375. So you can go there to see all this vocabulary as well. And also, guys, real fast, the last episode we did, 1374, some more great vocab. We gave you band 9 synonyms for the word honestly. So if you didn't hear that, scroll up. That was the very last episode. And make sure to hit follow so you don't miss another great vocab episode. All right. So let's go from big to small. What can we say instead of small?
Yes, two great alternatives are miniature and microscopic,
I
that
love
this
it.
student provided these. But this is one of our warnings here. The student also shared the word insignificant, which, depending on the context, this doesn't always mean small. I
Right.
couldn't say that the couch in my room is insignificant
Right.
because we're only talking about size when we talk about small for objects. Insignificant means more like unimportant.
Right, exactly. So if you're talking about your job and speaking part 1 and the examiner asks like what do you not like about your job? Very common question. You could use this to describe like small problems that, they're a problem but it doesn't really matter. So you could say, "Well, I mean, there are some things I don't like, but ultimately they're all pretty insignificant. Like I guess my coworkers talk too much, but
Right.
it doesn't ruin my life."
I hear this a lot for details, to say tiny, insignificant details. Sure,
Yeah.
it means the same as small, small details, but really what that means is unimportant details.
Right. So it's more like the idea of something not mattering a lot, right? We use it to
Right.
describe small ideas, small problems, but not like physical size usually.
Exactly. This could cause a problem if you are wanting to describe a restaurant as small and you call it insignificant. It might be very clear to the examiner that you don't actually know the meaning of that word. So this
Right.
is red warning flags. Be careful with insignificant. Doesn't always mean small. It does not mean physically small.
Exactly. And miniature and microscopic, these are also like extremely small, right? So make sure that you're using those correctly. All right. Now, the next word that everybody says all the time, good. Oh, please don't say good. Don't say good. Don't say nice. What can we say instead of that?
Yes, there are so many higher
So many.
scoring options, right? Exceptional is a good
Mm,
one for very good. And then if you want to talk about something just being kind of good, satisfactory is also a great word. And then this is another one where warnings, if you use the word valuable to mean good, doesn't always, it's not a direct synonym. I couldn't say that this rock is a good rock. It's not valuable. I mean, I couldn't say it's a valuable rock. That means it's worth a lot. It has a lot of value. So even
right.
though something could be good, it's not necessarily valuable.
Exactly. Valuable is really only with money, I would say, because it does have other definitions for sure, but those are more complex. There's a lot more involved in the connotation when we use valuable. So I would, if I were you guys, reserve this word for something specifically meaning a lot of money, like worth a lot of money. All right, awesome. Let's move on to bad. Ooh. Um, again, boring word, right? Band five. We don't want to use any of these vocabulary words that you learned in your first year of English. We want to use better vocabulary to get a seven or higher. So instead of bad, right? If something is really bad, you could say it's dreadful, it's awful. And here is something you'll see in the thesaurus as a synonym for bad, which is poor. I do not like this because so many students use this incorrectly. And honestly, we don't even use the word poor to describe to say something is bad unless it's like poor quality. That's really the only time I hear this used as bad.
Absolutely, right? We might say poor grammar, poor vocabulary, but we really don't use that in daily conversation. So it would be
Right.
strange on a speaking part one answer. I agree, Jessica. I would say eliminate this entirely. Also, it's not really higher scoring than bad. It's not
Correct.
impressive. And there are so many more interesting ways to say this. Dreadful, I love. If a
I
student
love it.
said dreadful on the speaking exam, that's band 9.
I love it so much. Yeah, I've heard a lot of students mistakenly use the word poor. I think it must be on some vocabulary lists out there because I've heard so many students say like my English is poor. And we you no it's not. You can't say that. Like we don't say that. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So you could say your English is bad, right? That makes sense, but again, if you're listening to us, you shouldn't say that because your English is awesome. So, let's move on. We have 3 more here. A lot. Now, again, guys, we use this all the time, I know, but on IELTS, you have to use better vocabulary than common daily words. So, what can we say instead of a lot?
Yeah, you could say a great deal of, a vast amount of, or
Nice.
plenty. In our course, we share a lot of synonyms for this because on writing task 1, you're guaranteed to need to say this. So you could say like a noticeable or remarkable amount of. There are a lot
Yeah.
of really interesting phrases. Avoid saying a lot.
And I really love the word plenty. It is a short word for sure, but you know why it's great, guys? Not a lot of students use this word. And it's an interesting gap because natives say this all the time to mean like a lot, right? Or
Good
like
point.
more than enough. I would say plenty also means just more than enough.
Yeah.
In a good way, right? Not too much. But we use this a lot. And so this is great for speaking part 1 and part 2 because it's not a word that a lot of students use.
Right, if you're talking about restaurants, for example, to say there are plenty of restaurants in the
Yeah,
town where I live, but my
totally.
favorite is what you're saying is there are more than enough, right? There's a satisfactory amount of restaurants, say plenty.
Totally. All right. Now, instead of saying very, right? Um, adverb that is way overused, you do have to remember to use adverbs because these are really easy ways to fit more great vocabulary in there. So instead of saying very, say extremely, or here's a great one, tremendously. Such a good word. Now, if you look in the thesaurus, it also says excessively is a synonym for very. No, it's a different meaning, right?
Exactly. This means too much.
Yeah,
So if you're trying to say like very impressive and you say excessively impressive, that means something else. It has a
right.
negative connotation of like too much. We're going overboard
It's
now.
not
So
good.
avoid, yeah, this is a mistake that we see students make a lot. So don't
Mhm.
use excessively if what you intend to mean is very.
Right. So let's go back to my example of like having coworkers that talk a lot, right? Um, you could say instead of my coworkers talk a lot, you could say my coworkers talk excessively, right? So I would say
Rude.
excessively. I know. Well, I mean, look around. I don't have any coworkers here. And when I am talking to my coworkers, like you, Aubrey, we do talk a lot. It's not excessive, it is a great amount.
Exactly. Tremendously, extremely, absolutely, right? You have to recognize there's this negative connotation.
Right.
So avoid using this. It does not, it means too, way too much.
Exactly, exactly. All right, guys. So let's recap what you learned today. And remember, go to allearsenglish.com/IELTS. This is episode 1375. Read the blog post for this, guys, so you can see all of this vocabulary, okay? Because you do need to write these down in your vocab notebook for IELTS. So, big, say enormous, colossal, or gigantic. What can we say instead of small?
For small, you can say miniature, microscopic. For
Mhm.
good, exceptional or satisfactory.
Mhm.
For bad, dreadful and awful.
Nice. And then for a lot, a great deal, a vast amount, or plenty, which is that's my word of the day, plenty.
I like that word.
And then the
Yeah.
last one, very, we say extremely or tremendously. Remember, guys, the reason you need these words is to stand out on IELTS. Do not sound like every other student who just memorized words in a textbook or used the wrong words from a thesaurus.
Yes, look for these when you proofread your IELTS essays. And if you see any of these, a lot, very good, bad, cross it off and write one of these better options above. You don't have to erase, doesn't have to be clean as long as the examiner sees. Ooh, that's impressive. They crossed this out because they knew a higher scoring word.
Exactly, exactly. All right, guys, that is your IELTS vocabulary lesson for today. And come back on the next episode on Friday because what are we talking about, Aubrey? Something great.
Ooh, yes, this is exciting. I'm excited for this one. We are sharing a very difficult task 2 essay with strategies, what to do when you get topics that you are unfamiliar with.
Yeah, it's going to be so good. So we will be back on Friday with that episode, guys. All right, Aubrey, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.